He was passed over for someone from the outside who had never run infrastructure at that scale. That was the moment James called me. Here's the hard truth. The skills that make you great at the last 10 or 15 years are not the skills that get you to the next level. In many cases, they are the ceiling. And when you're the expert who knows everything, the system, the code, the architecture, you become load-bearing. You are the thing that the organization leans on. And organizations do not promote load-bearing walls, they protect them. There's a phrase I use with my clients: being the best operator signals keep them where they are. Senior leaders are not looking at your technical knowledge and thinking promotion. They're looking at it and thinking risk. If we move this person, what breaks? That's the trap. You might be the best technical person on your team, but this might be exactly why you're not getting promoted. Stay with me. I know that sounds wrong, but by the end of this episode, you'll see it clearly, and more importantly, you'll know what to do about it. Welcome. I'm Bill Tingle, former CIO, executive coach, and someone who's spent 35 years inside enterprise technology watching brilliant leaders get overlooked while less qualified colleagues move up. This podcast exists for one reason: to close that gap, to give you the language, the presence, and the strategy to stop being invisible and start being inevitable. So let's get into it. I want you to think about someone on your team. Maybe it's you. They know the system's cold. When something breaks at 2 a.m., they get the call. When a critical deployment goes sideways, they fix it. When a vendor can't explain why an integration failed, this person walks in, looks at the logs, and solves it in 20 minutes. They're the hero. They're the safety net, the go-to, the person nobody wants to lose, and they haven't been promoted for 4 years. Meanwhile, someone with half the technical depth just got promoted and named VP of infrastructure. Nobody can explain why. This isn't random. There's a pattern here, and it's got a name. Let me tell you about James. James was a senior director at a mid-sized financial services company. 15 years in, deep technical knowledge, phenomenal track record. His team was solid. His systems were stable. His uptime numbers were some of the best in the company. James took real pride in knowing how everything worked. When a major payment processing system had issues, James could track the problem through all the architecture and find the root cause faster than anybody else. He loved it. It was his identity. When he got the time with senior leaders, James would walk them through what happened. He would explain the architecture. He'd lay out the fix. He'd describe the steps he was taking to prevent the issue from happening again. He was thorough, he was credible, and he knew his stuff. But here's what was happening on the other side of the table. The CTO wasn't hearing, "This guy's ready for more." The CTO was hearing, "If we move James, who protects us?" The CFO wasn't thinking about James as a strategic partner. She was thinking about system reliability and whether the company could afford to have James in a different seat. And the CEO, well, the CEO barely knew James. James wasn't being overlooked because he was bad at his job. He was being overlooked because he was too good at the wrong job. Then the VP of technology role opened up. James applied. He had the experience. He had the results. He was passed over for someone from the outside who had never run infrastructure at that scale. That was the moment James called me. Here's the hard truth. The skills that make you great at the last 10 or 15 years are not the skills that get you to the next level. In many cases, they are the ceiling. And when you're the expert who knows everything, the system, the code, the architecture, you become load-bearing. You are the thing that the organization leans on. And organizations do not promote load-bearing walls, they protect them. There's a phrase I use with my clients: being the best operator signals keep them where they are. Senior leaders are not looking at your technical knowledge and thinking promotion. They're looking at it and thinking risk. If we move this person, what breaks? That's the trap. And the more valuable you make yourself as an operator, the deeper the problem gets. There's something else happening too. When James talked to executives about system architecture and incident response, he was speaking a language they didn't find useful, nor did they understand. Not because it was wrong, but because it wasn't connected to what they cared about. Executives think in business outcomes: revenue, risk, competitive advantage, speed of market, cost efficiency. James was speaking technology. They needed him to speak business. He was answering questions nobody in that room was asking. What does the shift look like? It's not about pretending you don't know the technical details. It's about changing what you lead with and what you build around yourself. The move is from operator to orchestrator. An operator is the person with the answers. An orchestrator is the person who builds the team that has the answers and then translate what the team does into business value. Here's what it looked like for James once we started working together. First, he stopped being the one who walked executives through technical postmortems. He started having his team leads present those. His job became framing the business impact and the strategic decisions that needed to be made, not the architecture, the decisions. Second, he changed how he talked about his work. Instead of "we patched the vulnerability in the authentication layer," he started saying, "we closed a risk that could have exposed customer data and triggered Regulatory review. Here's what we did and why it matters for our audit posture in Q3. Same work, completely different language. Third, he started showing up in conversations he had been avoiding. Business strategy sessions, roadmap reviews with product and finance. He stopped waiting to be invited and started asking to be in the room. He also began connecting technology initiatives to business outcomes before anyone asked him to. When he brought a proposal, it came with a business case, not a technical spec. Within 8 months, the CTO started bringing James into conversations he had never been part of. Not because James changed what he knew, but because he changed what he talked about and what he made visible. Here's what I'd like you to take from this episode. Your technical credibility got you here. It won't get you there. The leaders who move up aren't always the most technically gifted. They're the ones who learn to translate their work into business language, build teams that do not depend on them personally, and show up in conversations that shape strategy, not just conversations that explain problems. That's the shift. Operator to orchestrator. If you're sitting in a role right now, feeling like James did, like you're working hard, delivering results, and watching others move up around you, I want you to know something. You're not broken. You're playing the wrong game. This podcast is going to give you the language and the strategy to play a different one. If this hits home, share it with one person in your network who needs to hear it, and subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. I'm Bill Tingle. Thanks for listening.